Hey you guys, it's MJ from Alta Love. Happy Sunday. How are you? I have a few minutes to spare and I just felt like sharing what's coming through as far as Ascension Symptoms. So what I want to say about that is all of us are completely unique vessels, really. And so this idea of awakening and ascension is an ongoing process. It never ends. So the ebbs and flows that we face as symptoms of what we call an awakening are going to be fairly unique and yet probably have some similarities. So one word I'm hearing quite powerful is a feeling of alienation. A symptom of awakening is this feeling of alienation, and often we can have to traverse this sense of feeling disconnected to really drop into the connection, our own unique connection. And then this is where I would say there's a fair amount of discipline involved. So yes, we have an awakening experience, we realize things aren't quite right, and then we endeavor the energy work. We endeavor on some level, whether we venture into energy healing or shamanism or yoga or martial arts, any kind of body work and that enhances our sense of self and our awareness. Basically that means as well, like, we're connected to our feeling state, we're connected to that invisible realm, right? So that process to me is ultimately this idea of ascension. Or so we have an awakening which kind of throws us off our egoic programming of I'm this person, I'm a robot in a human energy construct, right? And then you kind of break through that, or you break through the matrix. So you have the awakening, you have this sense of alienation or distortion. And then the process of finding your way back home, you could say, is what we might call an ascension. And yet the ascension never ends. And it's an ebb and flow in a cyclical sense. So we have to remind ourselves that there is an ebb and flow of ascension and descension, that we're always sort of recycling and rebirthing, or destroying and birthing, or destroying and creating our own sense of self through this infinite portal of cosmic creation. It is truly benevolent and divine. And yet that journeying from sort of a disembodied self, this ascension as we call it, in a human form, on a collective agreement, sort of 3D, like we're moving from 3D to a higher state. Symptoms you can feel are just being more connected, feeling more of our bodies, being a lot more sensitive to other people's energies, picking up on energies that are beyond the words that people use. So again, going back to this part of ascension which requires our discipline is why meditation, self-care, self-love, relaxation, and just spending time being connected every day, and then having a conscious movement practice and eating in a way that feels in alignment with your signature, with, you know, who you're here to be and who you're choosing to be in any given moment. And that in itself is ebbing and flowing as we go through our own personal life cycles. And that's something, again, our culture sort of has disconnected from. In disconnecting from that sacred way of being in harmony and rhythm and nature, there is an acceptance that through our life journey we transform, we become different roles, we shapeshift, right? So moving from thinking you don't shapeshift to realizing you do can often bring about different pains in our body, and we can often have like cold and flu symptoms as our body clears out stuff that's been kind of stagnating on our chest or whatever. And really becoming more sensitive to feelings, subtle energies, discernment, listening. Something, just being straight up with you guys, like I just accept it as like the ebb and flow of life as well, without trying to call it anything necessarily like Ascension Symptoms. But something like, I definitely resonate. I often tune in and hear ringings. That's why I do so much breath work, because I sometimes have like sensation of nausea or like big energy surges coming through my body. So breath work is incredibly powerful for grounding that energy in. And then the more attuned you become with your meditation practice, ultimately you're working with your field of creation, right? So that's the discerning capacity within, is that you know you've connected so much with the light of your awareness that you're like merged with that lightness, and then that lightness kind of gives you more freedom and more courage to keep navigating different portals of your own creative output, right? And not all of it's comfortable necessarily, but we get better and better as like the masters of our own self at containing the full spectrum of our energetic container, right? Of really holding space for all that is within us, and then all that potentiality can be created from within our own energetic vortex. People have talked about this, and again, I can totally affirm or resonate, because it was happening to me before I had any manifestation externally regarding it. But sometimes when you're going through with that awareness, different vibrational shifts, I call them emotional storms, right? There's like a whole bunch of energy moving through, you're crying, you might be in fits or whatever, and then that shifts around. When we have these powerful belts of like upgrades or shifts, often we can start to see codes, and it's not all the time when I meditate, but certainly when there's like a potent energy belt, it's very visceral in my awareness. There's like new codes being kind of downgraded, but then the physical body upgrades, and so it's sort of like a reversal. It's like backwards how we look at our physical reality, because we recognize that in the present moment, in essence, if it's weighing us down, if it's dense, then we're looking at like a past projection or potentially an embodied karmic pattern. So we keep shedding in the present moment and using the channel of light to be the main creator, rather than the fear, rather than the other. So yeah, sometimes breathwork helps with nausea. That softening back into the void or stillness or silence is super powerful for decluttering the mind, because the chaotic mind is ultimately what creates this thing like anxiety and even things like depression to a certain degree, because we're not at rest, truthfully. And so it's coming into this rested state more and more and more, which helps us ride out anything we could even call ascension symptoms, right? Because the ascension symptoms are really just this idea of full embodiment of the emotionality in equal kind of recognition with the physicality, right? It's one and the same thing. So it's unifying, which is why we just get better at kind of holding space for pain, or holding space for illness or clearings, or holding space for uncomfortable emotions. The better we get better at dealing with the emotion first, the physical doesn't manifest in the same way that when we're in denial. So yeah, I think sometimes we must be aware of not getting trapped in like even quantifying or solidifying symptoms, because I'm even aware with the book that I published, like the Fearless Life Guide, that even as I was writing it in my own process, I was aware that even this as a process you can detach from, because the never ending will shapeshift from your level of awareness or from your point of attraction. And as we move through cycles, we're constantly aware of wanting to create more different things or different feeling things based on the contrast of our totality, right? So yeah, trust, basically, like trust in faith, and trust in faith that whatever you're going through, whatever you're experiencing, it's all showing us the way. It's all showing us how to be bigger, better people. And the more gracefully and like compassionately that we can just sit with the uncomfortable stuff and not necessarily run away or find company to distract us or anything like that, yeah, we feel more whole. And that's something I can really honor about my path. That's just this silence and this withdrawalness and this sort of interconnection is just kind of always very dominantly there, which is kind of what's directed me in my life. And at this point, it's obvious to me that it's fairly still unconventional, that fewer people listen and they feel really shameful around their sensitive heart and all that kind of stuff. So we just have collectively a lot of density to clear, and at the same time we become more powerful in the work that we do. And so it is an exponential growth path, right? Exactly. Oh, dyslexic artist theory of physics of time. That's kind of what I was like saying at the beginning about ascension symptoms, is that like we don't, because sometimes when we're going through this, which is a sovereignty, kind of being the fullness of your authenticity and your signature, right? It's actually shedding all of the stuff that wants to kind of group pack us in mentality. Like, unity consciousness is like this paradoxical aspect where we're fully embodying the truth of our knowing, but in a loving, compassionate way. So we allow others to be a loving, compassionate creator in their sovereignty and totality. And then from that place of unified field, we then, as conscious creators, create something that is in a higher harmonic frequency for the entire collective. So it's a deep shift. And yet, again, just trust that whatever you're going through is okay, you know, just trust that, because that's all I had to do as I was like endeavoring this and then ended up writing the book. I literally was just moving through these energies, just trusting. And I knew, like, even in the moment, I would know that I was doing something or going through something energetically that I was like, oh my God, like, if a normal person saw me do this, they'd be like, ah, what's happening to you? You're going crazy, blah, blah. And you're like, but my inner knowing was like, your body's going through an alchemical process, basically. You have to just sit with this. You just have to clear out this energy that's coming through you right now. And that's what it was. And I know that I'm a lighter, happier being for having gone through that. But that's where this work is so delicate, because as much as we want to share the wisdom and share the love and share the light and like change everybody, that's not how it works, because it's divine. It's beyond us as individual ego, like it's happening to us at the same time as we're creating it, kind of thing. And so this whole awakening stuff is something divine and miraculous and beyond the mind. We're all very different, but based on the same, exactly, hence infinite worlds, infinite dimensions, infinite portals of reality within this unified, incredibly beautiful and divinely ordered, you know, universe that we live in. What a fucking blessing it is to just have this experience as crazy and wild and mysterious and, you know, all of that it is. And I guess that's part of the benevolence side. The more you're in the void, like, just more and more I feel in this peaceful state of like allowance and grace, and like life just continues to unfold in these most miraculous ways, and you're like, yep, that's what I always knew. Just quite a lot of inner disciplining to let go of certain thought patterns and to trust the body's alchemy, to trust the body's infinite wisdom to move through what we might like to call an ascension, a kind of pocket of ascension symptoms, right? So your whole experience is valid, and just keep going and the love train. Have a great day, you guys. I hope that was useful to you. Thank you so much for your comments and your questions. I really appreciate it. It just keeps this abundant flow going, which obviously I love. And just giving you guys a love virtual hug on a Sunday, virtual hugs. Have a great day, you guys. Peace. Namaste, my love.